sånn sett, det er stor ære for oss at Mohtaram Farooq Murad er her nå, og de kommer til å snakke om Foundation of Islamic Movements. Han har stor erfaring i det området. Inshallah, dere kommer til å lære masse av ham.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. My very respected President of Islamic Culture Center, Brother Sayyid Rizwan Ahmed. I see many founders, pillars and elders of this center. I met some brothers, but I'm sure sisters have played a bigger role, inshallah, in setting up the center. It's a pleasure to be here. It's wonderful to come here because I came to Norway in 2005 when I was running a cultural awareness consultancy in the UK, and we had some contact with the Norwegian government, and they invited us to deliver some training programs for the AIM here in Norway. So we did some research and we did some programs. So I met some of you at that time. I remember particularly Salam was speaking earlier. He's still looking as young as then, mashallah, more energy, alhamdulillah. And this center, subhanallah, it wasn't there at the time. And this is a credit to yourselves and a big gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we have in this frozen part of the world a lively and warm center like this, warmed by your belief, your iman, and by the nusra and the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah, this center is a long way to go. The topic given to me was, may I also comment that I can see as I said, Tarazu is very much going in this direction, which gives me real pleasure, mashallah, because, I think of Malcolm X, who said, you might remember his quote, that if you educate one of these people here, one of the men, you only educate one individual. But if you educate one of this group here, one woman or sister, you educate a nation, I would say generation. So I am very fortunate that we have young women here, mashallah, and some mothers, sisters here as well, because I think your role is extremely important in what I'm going to be talking about. Because, in my own case, my father, Allah yarhamhu, his name has been mentioned, but he was hardly home, really. And he was very busy. And he did teach us some great things, and I think in my life, it was when I was doing an engineering degree in UK, and like a lot of young people, the only thing in mind was perhaps to finish my UK degree and get a good job, and perhaps plan was we would return to Pakistan, and some of our elders in my family, engineering profession, have done very well. They've set up some big companies in Pakistan, some multinational companies. My father is a successful engineer as well. So we was quite excited about the career prospects and so on. And it was at that time that my father, rahmatullah alayhi, was speaking to some young people, and he invited me to come to a program, a series of programs. Not just one weekend, but 12 weekends, from Friday evening to Sunday afternoon. And so he asked me, Beta, would you like to attend this program? But the only requirement is you have to come 12 weekends, one weekend every month for the whole year. It was my third year of the university engineering and management degree, which was a tough year, but I committed, alhamdulillah, I did. But that's planted some seeds, and some of the things we learn is what I would like to share today. That planted some seeds which I am feel very privileged, that led me not to pursue a career in the long run in the engineering profession, but move more towards social engineering and look at the huge potential. That what excited me most was the huge potential, this amazing phenomena of our presence in Europe offers us. And this is what I would like you to hold on to, this one thought. I was given the topic Foundation Islamic Movement, but I think this movement is a loaded term, and some visit this another bid'ah and iftar, what is this movement, etc. And I would like us to understand what's the purpose and mission of Islam itself, because that will clarify whether we need to be moving or not. But if yes, purpose is clear, then why do Islamic work? And some of the, mashallah, elders, pioneers here have been doing it for years, as we heard. Started with young stalwarts like Zamran, Jazakallah, for organizing this program, and they've gone on to become senior guides and beacons of light, mashallah. But why have they done all this Islamic work? What has motivated us? And have we got our targets right? How far can Islamic work go? Or we are going to get very tired soon, or lose the purpose of it all, and not be able to continue to expand to the future generations. So that's what I would like to talk about very quickly. Great stories. You remember these boys, I'm sure. You have learned about them in great detail. Remember that boy was thrown into the well? Was only 11 years old.
First boy is
Yusuf alayhi salam. Yes, indeed. And the second boy is not a boy, a baby. Musa alayhi salam. Any idea how many times Musa alayhi salam has been mentioned in the Quran? Have a rough guess. I don't want you to go and Google.
More than 80 times.
More than 80 times?
Yeah.
MashaAllah.
in the most in the world.
Any increase to that? 95. I have read something like about 120, 30 times. About 135. Is that shocking? I find that quite shocking. Prophet Muhammad has been mentioned 5 times. But Musa alayhi salam, who lived thousands of years ago, the book which we hold with great awe and respect as being the book of hidayah and guidance from the Creator Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he felt that so many of these verses of this book should be devoted to Musa alayhi salam. Or a whole story of Yusuf alayhi salam. Surah number 12, incidentally, 11 brothers, 12 brothers, surah number 12, place number 12, has 111 verses, 111, a lot of symbolic in this surah, mashallah. That was the first one, which I find quite significant for us living in Norway or in UK, Muslim community today here, to reflect over, because I find Yusuf al-Islam's case to be a very powerful case for us to be able to do a lot of things if we can grasp what is being done there and what is being said. But these are great stories which have been mentioned at great length in the Quran. And in those 2 stories, one of the messages, and the great messages, let me talk about it. One of the key messages, what is the key message in those 2 stories? It's one message you would like to give. If anyone has any thought to share. Sorry, you can say Norwegian or Urdu, Urdu I can understand, but Norwegian somebody can translate. But feel free, okay?
Nobody can damage anybody else, or if God does not will to hurt us, so nobody can hurt us. And that's because Joseph,
yes,
he was thrown into the well with the thought that he will be finished.
Yes.
But God, this was a
has own plan.
When to the progress in a way in the eyes of God. And from well to Egypt, and then from Egypt from a house to the prison, and from prison to the government
office, big government office. Yes, amazing. What a journey.
That nobody can hurt you if God
what a journey. Very inspiring journey, very good, one of the key messages, from nowhere to somewhere great. Yes, my sister.
If we see from one point, look at the Quran story, we think that they were tested in a way, and it
True.
was a hard test in the life of both boys. But on the other hand, we see that they reach, after going through these tests, they reach at the city of knowledge, on those homes where they can learn more. They were educated, as in the case of
MashaAllah,
Yusuf,
amazing.
and in the case of Musa also.
Yeah.
If they were living with their parents, they didn't have opportunity to learn.
Yeah, indeed, that's a very good point. Okay, since time is short, I would like to have done more of this reflection, but I think this reflection is very important. We don't do enough of it, and I think something else my father was very good at is reflecting over the Quran, and we did those workshops of the Quran in many of those sessions to reflect deeper and deeper why things are connected, why this verse comes after that verse, what is the why this thing has been said. It says, for example, do not let your children and your wealth take you away from zikrullah, and then وَأَنْفِقُوا, why after immediately saying وَأَنْفِقُوا, what's the relation between infaq and dhikr? Is infaq dhikr, is dhikr infaq, etc. So this kind of exercises are very important because we should use our intellect, because this is the Quran's own invitation. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ أَفَلَا يَتَفَكَّرُونَ, why don't you ponder and reflect? But for me, what the point I would like to share, why I find these both stories significant for us is, as my sister just said, that they were, Yusuf alayhi salam was only third generation in Ibrahim alayhi salam's household. Ibrahim alayhi salam, then Yaqub and Ishaq, Ibrahim alayhi salam, then Ishaq, then Yaqub and Yusuf alayhi salam. So within the generation of the person Khalilullah who stood to bring humanity to the worship of one God, but they were living in a very a place of insignificance at the time. They were shepherds living in Palestine, in part of area which they could just be flocking and their sheep and live out like this. And at the time, nobody could have predicted there was domestic violence, domestic disturbance, in the sense that 11 brothers felt that their father was too much inclined towards Yusuf alayhi salam, and that led to them hatching a plan and taking him away. And that led a process, as we heard, through which he ended in a power, place of significance, place of influence, place of power, where he could learn, and he learned things, he established his character, and he was able to offer a solution for the society to the extent that he was invited to join, even though he's a prophet, not join as leader of the society or change the system, bring about a revolution, nothing like that, but play a significant role for the betterment of the society. That's why I think Yusuf Islam's story is quite inspiring for Muslims living in UK or Norway, and alhamdulillah, it's a guidance which has been preserved. And Musa Islam's case is the same, that this ethnic group at the time in Egypt, they had been condemned for persecution. There was kind of Islamophobia that led to the rulers declaring that the boys, and I heard this, that one of the leaders of the far right in Denmark said something very similar, that we should put the Muslim men onto ship and let them sail away, and we should auction Muslim women, etc. I heard that was shared with me by someone from Denmark. So there's a kind of Islamophobia that is seeping in. But kind of Islamophobia which led Fir'aun to declare that boys should be slaughtered and women should be left on big ibtila azim. We say Islamophobia, ibtila, there was a big ibtila azim. Policy had been sanctioned. And after that sanctioning the policy, Allah inspired one mother to take her son and trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, let him sail away somewhere. And I have many stories of migrants who've come to Britain, come to Europe, from villages, from places of insignificance, whose children now are holding influential positions in this country and in the rest of the Europe, and they have learned language and speak English and Norwegian and Danish better than the locals, perhaps in many, many, many instances and cases. So is there a process that is taking place in terms of your and my being present here, that we could see some kind of divine plan? Because divine plans are there in all great events. There are no accidents of history. I think 20 million Muslims coming to Europe after its destruction in the First and Second World War. We may say that this is what the industrial expansion, the requirement of labor. Yes, this is what contemporarily and in time people would say. The reason is because of labor shortage and labor shortage, but there's a big planner. Why labor shortage? Why Muslims have to come? So I think there's no accident of history. In big events which unfold, there are plans. And people of ulul albab are those who see signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They can feel it. I can feel it. I can see it. You can see it if you reflect. That Europe, where Muslims had first come many centuries ago and lived for 8 centuries in Spain, and there were rulers that developed civilization, and a lot of that civilization ideas are in the fabric of European society, its administration, its legal structures, government structures, they're there. But they became imperial power, and they wiped out from Europe. Came again as imperial power, knocking the doors of Sicily. That was the Ottoman in the 15th century, just after the Muslims were thrown out of Spain, 1492. In 1550, another imperial power were trying to invade Europe, and invaded many parts of Europe, like Eastern Europe and so on, Bosnia and so on. But they were also not there for long. But this time, this part of the world has received Muslims not as imperial power, not as rulers, but as you and me, as basic migrant workers and laborers from places of insignificance. Somalia, parts of Pakistan. I mean, Khari is not a place of insignificance, I would not say that. Of course, a place of great significance, alhamdulillah. Because you have come from there, alhamdulillah, Gujarat. And so many other parts of Muslim world, Muslims have arrived in great number, 20 million, 3 million in Britain. You know, our Chancellor of Exchequer, who runs the British government's finance, Sajid Javed, is the son of a bus driver who came from Pakistan, and it's the 6th largest economy. So there are great, we have come to a place of opportunity, of contribution, and there is a divine plan. So is there a plan for our arrival in Norway, the West? If you can understand and attach yourself to that kind of plan, you will do a lot greater things than just restricting yourself to the 4 walls of this center, Islamic Cultural Center. If you can see and feel a bigger plan, then you will get some amazing ideas to do amazing things. And this is what we need to reflect over. Does the humanity around this center need you and me? Will this society in the long run need Islam to survive and continue to look after your children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren? They're not going away from here. Will this ship still carry them with the same peace that you experience, that I and you can sit here comfortably, speak, eat, laugh, grow old, and enjoy the services and benefits? Is that the promise of Allah will continue? And we not attending to the people around? So what's the plan for us in Norway? This is what we need to grasp and understand. I think guidance is the key. That our most distinctive feature of Muslims and this Ummah and Islam, most distinctive feature is that we believe we carry the guidance, the last testament from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the teachings of His last prophet till the day of judgment. There's no other special thing about us. There's nothing other special thing that we can bring and contribute to these societies. And this is the main feature. And our rise and our fall, the hadith which says we rise and we fall by only one thing. Not by our wealth, not by our numbers, not by where we live, how good we look, but how we treat that guidance. And that's a historical fact, that when we lived by that guidance, the first generations, in an age when traveling was difficult, it took 8 days to travel from Makkah to Medina Munawwar. But in 25 years, we were in Asia, Africa, Spain, Europe, all the continents of that mainland as we know. And when we did not, even though we had empire in Spain, we had empire in India, we had empire in Turkey, they collapsed, they withered away. So that is, I think, the key question that you need to grasp in order to understand the true scope of the Islamic work. Once we understand what guidance is, what it is for, who is it for, how it needs to live and be actualized in our lives and our societies, then only I think we will become catalyst for achieving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's. All the side issues that bother us will disappear. We entangle ourselves in too many side and minor issues. So what are our options with regards to this Islam, this guidance? Options for young people in growing up in Norway, in Britain, in Europe, anywhere in the world. There are, I think, some of the options I can think of. The first option is it just a family tradition? Most of us were, except few exceptions here, I don't know, were born in a Muslim home. So our parents taught us Islam. We realized we are Muslim as we became growing older. We realized we have to do certain things, we can't do certain things. So one approach could be what we call, it's an identity, it's too much hard to really reject it and go away from it. So we adjust, we survive, we cope, we put on a bit of this culture, that culture. We can make sure we're accepted by him and them, and so on. And we flow with the flow, and time goes, and before long, we are old. And old age perhaps will occur that, I should perhaps re-establish my link with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in olden age, some people would come back to masjid, will try to be more observant of a Muslim. And that's how a generation and generations can pass. Second option is, no, that's not good enough. You're not very secularized. You would like perhaps to practice as best as possible, given all the hardships and difficulties. So we do our rituals, we do our do's and don'ts, and a bit more observant of a Muslim, and think I'm a good Muslim. I'm doing very well. Another option I've not mentioned, which is now becoming a bit big in parts of Europe, which is called ex-Muslims. Imran, what's bothering you? The time is 19 minutes, 15 minutes left. Oh, that's a lot of time. I only get notice when only 3 minutes left. No, I'll wrap it up before then, don't worry, inshallah. Okay. So the other option is that, what I've not mentioned, is what we call ex-Muslims. I'm not sure whether you have it in Norway, but in Britain, I know of young people from good Muslim families who say, look, I don't believe this. I can't go on being hypocrite and deceiving and trying to put this whole garb of being a Muslim. I'm not really a Muslim. So they've found enough courage and guts to say, look, we are ex-Muslims now. interestingly, they still would like to be referred to as Muslims. I say, why don't you just go away and don't call yourselves ex-Muslim or anything? I mean, there are many Christians who are, I've not come across many ex-Christians. They say, look, I don't believe in anything. I'm agnostic, atheist, whatever. But still they find it difficult not to be associated with Islam. But ex-Muslim, that is very sad, but I think it's better to me that, you know, Islam is something that is a belief, is based on your belief, is based on your aqidah, and that is, but that is a challenge, of course, because we live in a civilization. Let's not forget, we breathe in a civilization, in a culture. We drive its cogs and wheels. We work in it, which has declared a lot of our beliefs as asatirul awwaleen, as Quran says, the stories of the past days, figments of mind. All this idea there's a God and people go to grave, there's punishment, there's hell, there's heaven. And in good families that's happening. In our families we know of young people. I know of recently 2 or 3 incidences have happened in UK where some elders passed away and the children came. They could not even stand and offer namaz-e-janazah because they said we cannot. They stood by the side, and it was very sad to see that happening. Anyway, that's another challenge. We will look into that, whether we should worry about that or do something else. But the other option is to accept it as the greatest blessing, Islam, for self and humanity. I think this is a level of iman that is we need to work on. That, you know, we begin to see that, you know, what we possess is the greatest blessing for us and for humanity. And this blessing has to be shared with the humanity. It's not just for myself. I do my salah, I do my halal food, I go home. But I'm sitting on a blessing that can bless humanity, that can lead and help humanity, help human beings. So, brothers and sisters, we are living in historic times with amazing opportunities for extraordinary lives and great rewards. This is the point that we need to grasp, living in Norway, living in UK, living in Europe, for all Muslims. This is my main message to young and old. Historic times. I was talking to one of our elders, Professor Rashid Ahmed, the other day. He was saying and he's good knowledge of history, that when he casts a look at history, he finds phases when there was conflicts, armed conflicts, political crises, economic problems, racial problems, social issues, family issues, moral issues. But rarely, he said, he finds periods when humanity was confronted with all of these problems at the same time. Deep moral, social, cultural, political problems are bubbling underneath the surface. So whilst it's time for opportunities, but also for threats and dangers. I don't want to go into details, but European history is something we don't have to read history of hundreds of years, but history of just 100 years would be enough to show us that real dangers exist. I was reading, and I would encourage all of you to read, if you can, Muhammad Assad's Road to Mecca, a very popular book, a great book, I think, of a European Austrian young Jew, how he traveled to Muslim lands, and how in 1935, 1928, when as a young man he was in Jerusalem and his mamus were discussing he went to spend time during holidays, like our children go during holidays in summer. So he decided to go, because his parents were well-to-do in Germany, very well off, and he decided to go and spend the vacation with his maternal uncles, his mamu in Jerusalem, and they were planning this whole idea of creating a state of Israel, and he as a young man thought was not a great sustainable idea, surrounded by all these Muslims land around. But he writes that in this book. But he, within 5-6 years, whilst he was having his wonderful holidays, both of his parents had been killed in concentration camps. Life had turned very rapidly against his people back in Germany, as we know, 1928 to 1935-40, and within 5-6 years. So, and in Europe, people talk about assimilation, that we should assimilate ourselves, we should adopt local culture, language, etc. The two most successful assimilations in Europe one can think of are Muslims in Bosnia and Jews in Germany. They completely assimilated. Dress-wise, names, language, you name it. And these two assimilations did not happen that long ago. They were successful assimilations only a few decades ago. And we know what happened to those two assimilated people. They're very comfortably assimilated. So there are threats and dangers. But I will now wrap up a bit more quickly. So my point is that this is the prospect as to what is the Islamic work. I think there cannot be a better two verses to indicate the basic task upon us than these two verses of Surah Al-Hajj. They're the last two verses of Al-Hajj, and I very much recommend that we reflect deeply into these two verses. O you believe, bow down, prostrate yourselves, adore your Lord, and do good. So why these things have been mentioned? Rituals, action, good work, Islamic work, that you may prosper. And then that Islamic work is being now detailed in the following verse, number 78. What is that? And you should strive in his cause as you ought to strive, as the haqq of that cause is. He has chosen you. Remember Musa alayhi salam said, وَاسْتَنَعْتُكَ لِنَفْسِي, I've chosen you for myself. That's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. And he says to who? To you and me, that we have chosen you and have imposed no difficulties. وَمَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ. No difficulties in this path. And you would say, well, what does he mean? Because it's a very difficult path, isn't it? Living by Islam in situations and conflicting times when things are against us. There is Islamophobia, and wearing hijab is a challenge, living halal way is a challenge for young people, and so on. So it is very testing and very difficult. But again, when we did our discussions, we learned that وَمَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ does not mean musibah has not been used. Musibah, hardship, sa'ab has not been used. What means haraj? And haraj basically, in terms of root word meaning, that it is used, haraj is also used for a bird when it gets stuck in bushes and cannot find its way out. That he's not created in this path obstacles that we cannot surmount. We cannot progress. We can't get out of the situation. In the most difficult of situations, if things turn against us, we will find a way forward. That's what he has promised, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the way of your father. He found a way forward. He was also thrown into fire as well. It is he who has named you Muslims. That is why we are called Muslims, both before and in this revelation. That the Rasul is a witness for you, and you are witnesses for whom? Ala nas, for mankind. And a lot of mankind were living in Europe. They needed witnesses. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought us here. فَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةِ, to develop yourself, your strength, your iman, وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةِ, and develop your society's sense of contributing to society. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِاللَّهِ, and hold on to Allah during all this time. هُوَ مَوْلَاكُمْ, He is your Lord. فَنِعْمَ الْمَوْلَى وَنِعْمَ النَّصِيرُ, how wonderful a Mawla and Nasir, the helper. He will help. This is Islamic movement, brothers and sisters. No new ideas. It is committing the Ummah back to its purpose and mission. With this purpose is adopted, we begin to live for humanity. Humanity will embrace us. But they are in difficulties. Ordinary people I know, non-Muslims and others, they are in a lot of difficulties and problems. And Islam is a solution. We can be the carrier of the solution. When we bring solutions, people will, colonial rulers, wherever they went, they were thrown out of those lands. Whether Africa, Asia, French fought a bloody war in Algeria, and they brought out systems, but still they were never accepted because they lived to draw benefit from these lands for themselves. But Muslims, wherever they went, they were never thrown out. They became part of the culture of that land. Locals became Muslims. And that's how Islamic Ummah has grown and has become strong, inshallah. So, and there are further evidence because time is short, but I'll just simply talk about one event which is Khabbab bin Arat's story, which is in Sahih Bukhari, as you know. And some of you must have read this hadith, a very famous hadith, that when the situation became very difficult for the Sahaba in Mecca, in the Meccan crucible, you need a crucible to get better. You get stronger in a crucible. You have to face a bit of fire to become the kind of strong person, some hardships in life. They say if you want to make somebody really good batsman, what do you have to do? Get a good bowler against him. Unless he faces the best and fastest and the best spinners, he will not learn. Similarly, the time was very tough, and Khabbab bin Arat came and asked Rasulullah. He was resting by the Kaaba. Said, Ya Rasulullah, pray for victory. It's not too much. And the narration is, Rasulullah sat up, his face turned red, and he said, gave examples of the hardship people had gone before then. And then he said something which I think what we need to reflect over. He said, by Allah, this mission will be completed. And what does that mean when we said the mission would be completed? Anybody would like to just give me that sentence he said? What was his definition of completion of Allah's mission? What would happen? A traveler will be able to travel from Sana'a to Hadramaut. And some narrations say a female would be able to travel. And anybody who goes to Yemen even now would know what this means. Traveling from Sana'a to Hadramaut, and would have no fear of anyone except Allah, or the fact that a wolf may attack them, or the sheep. Now I find it interesting that Rasulullah sitting there, people in hardship, he only can give this vision. But to me, there can't be a better vision of perfect globalization that people, Western civilization world takes great pride than this. That is freedom to travel, protection of honor, protection of wealth, your possession, everything is protected, and you yourself have fear of Allah alone, so that you will not cause any harm to anybody either. A society, a world that is at peace. This is the vision of Islam. And Islamic movement is about working towards that. That's what Islam brings. So revivalist idea simply means that we bring Quran back into our lives and we live for the Quran. Especially young people, I would say, don't just sell your lives for just living an ordinary life. Even if you have the highest of professional dreams, highest of community leadership dreams, they are very small compared with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala offers. Take the leadership of mankind. When Ibrahim a.s. fulfilled all the promises made, all the tests he went through, وَإِذِ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ فَتَمَّهُنَّ. When he completed even the last of the tests, which was to sacrifice his son, what was he promised? He was promised, قَالَ إِنِّي جَعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا. Now I'm making you leaders of mankind. Not your tribe, not your Islamic Cultural Center, of mankind. We are the Millah of Ibrahim, as Surah Al-Hajj says. He was promised the leadership of mankind. West not supposed to be leading. East was not supposed to be leading. Arabs should not be leading. Pakistani should not be leading. That's not what our contention is. The truth and justice should be leading mankind. And Ibrahim al-Islam, قَالَ إِنِّي جَعِلُكَ لِنَاسِ إِمَامًا. He immediately said, قَالَ وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِي. Does this promise also applies to my descendants? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, لَا يَنَالُ أَحَدُ الظَّالِمِينَ. My promise does not apply to those who do wrong. And wrong is, brothers and sisters, not living in Norway for taking Islam forward from this center, from this organization. Give your time, your resources, in your life, make that a priority. And once we do that, we will see the blessings that will come to our lives. And we will experience the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His rahmah, His fadl, and He will join our hearts. He'll make people around us our best of friends. إِذْفَى بِالَّتِي أَحْسَنُ فَإِذَا الَّذِي بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهُ عَدَاوَةٌ كَأَنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَمِيمٌ. You repel what is bad things people do to you with what is better here, ahsan. You will see that Allah will make those between you and them, there's enmity, become friends. Waliyun Hamid is very strong words. That between the people there is whatever phobia, distrust, dislike exists will disappear. And I've experienced it myself with individuals who perhaps did not like us, did not like Islam, but once the Quran has joined our hearts, they became our great friends. So make that a vision. Islamic Culture Center exists to bring the message of Islam to Norway. And those who belong to this community, young and old, should make their plans, like I saw beautiful plans we heard from Arsalan, support this kind of plan, make it bigger plan, give it more resources, give your life, your savings, your resources. Live like Abu Darda, who said to Rasulullah, I'll give all my date plantations to you. And rushed and said to his wife, come out, I've already given to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need those levels of sacrifice. Then you will see things will change, inshallah. May Allah give us strength. May Allah give us tawfiq. May Allah give us understanding. Join our hearts and give us the ability to serve the greatest cause on this earth, which we can, which we will, inshallah. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر لي ولكم. استغفر الله الغفور الرحيم.